is wrong with you?
Thought you'd be happy to see me.
Lurking in my bedroom?
Well, it's not your bedroom. Your husband's that way. He'll have his earplugs in by now. So. We're all alone.
I'm tired. Go home.
You just love to play games, don't you? Keep everyone off balance?
Let's say I do. What are you gonna do about it? I'm going to sleep now, so... Unless you plan to creep back into the shadows and watch me undress, it's time to say goodnight.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Legend Status podcast, where we interview and feature artists, entrepreneurs, and just all around legends. Today, I am joined with an actor, somebody who is I'm told, a Muay Thai practitioner, and somebody who continues to break boundaries every single day. I am joined with Tanisha. I'm going to try, because everyone has trouble with my last name, but is it Thammavongsa? Thammavongsa?
Thammavongsa.
Thammavongsa. Okay, my bad. I'm Lao, so I really should have this. But today we are featuring Tanisha with in regards to Lao New Year and an upcoming great year, so everyone can obviously have great fortune and great luck. But thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm amazing. I'm in Krabi, Thailand right now. I got zero complaints. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew.
You literally just made everybody jealous in one comment, I'm sure. Training in Krabi on an island. It's hot. She's filming outside. There's barely any sound. So for those who don't quite know who you are yet, because they will, and all of them will, tell us a little bit about you, your origin, what you do, and how you do it.
I'm an actress. I was born in small town Southern Ontario, in a community that had, let's say, like 5 or 6 churches, a llama farm, and a mini putt, and a video rental. So we're talking small, small.
Was it a Blockbuster?
No, it was like the convenience store had videos you could rent. It was tiny, but like, idyllic looking back in the 90s, nostalgic, right? But
Yeah.
I've been an actress since my teens. I was a dancer. I got my first agent that way. And then I fell more in love with acting than with dancing, as like training as a dancer. And next summer will be 20 years that I've been in the industry. So I guess you could say I'm almost a veteran at this point. Thank you. I'm going to have a
Congratulations.
cake. I'm going to have a cake for longevity.
Nice.
But yes, that's me. I've been doing a lot of film and television in Toronto, basically.
Awesome. What kind of dance were you performing, I guess, before?
I did the whole competition dance thing. I don't know if your listeners will be familiar, but it's like a lot of sequins, like very tightly slicked back hair and like perfect ring curls and like lots of smiling, jazz tap. And then I specialized in ballet, which really had my heart. So it's a discipline.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard, especially just recently, that there is almost it's almost like military for ladies. Would you suggest that that's like how difficult it was and how disciplined or how disciplined you needed to be to perform well?
Yeah, 100%. I'm just, yeah, 100%. Ballet is, yeah, it's very intense.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and you know what? Obviously, we've had other dancers on, and when I hear about the dedication it takes for all dancers to be great, it's just constant repetition, so many injuries, obviously practice, lots of criticism, and likely the circle and environment that you were in. Let's talk culturally, because that's sort of why we're here. What was it like being a Lao Thai sort of mixed person growing up in small town Ontario?
Um, Othering. I would say. I mean, it was very, very isolated. I would say the only people of color in the like very small town where I was growing up were my cousins. And there was one black boy who was like a couple of grades older than me. Um, and other than that, it was like not only white, but predominantly blonde. So I think I was in like a kind of an extreme environment of like feeling different racially, if that makes
Right.
sense, more than being in a small city or something. Yeah, I mean, I've been working on, I'll just jump right into this, but over the past year, I've been working on a collection of short stories, which I'm done the first draft that is roughly looking at my internalized racism, like the experiences that I had. So I think it goes into your subconscious, and I had a mentor prompt me to artistically explore those experiences through literature as opposed to like writing a screenplay and attempting to make something of it so that I could really honestly examine them. And like one of the short stories is called Seafood Fried Rice, which, if you're an Asian kid, you know what it is to bring your lunch to school and you have, something really yummy and special. And your parents maybe sent you with a hot lunch because they love you, right? And meanwhile, the other kids have Lunchables, which are far less tasty, by the way,
And
but
nutritious.
right, it's like rubber cheese and stale crackers. And you've got fried rice that has tentacles in it, but there's, the whole thing that goes with that as a kid, right?
That's incredible. I mean, shout out to your mentor because I do feel like there's probably a lot of young immigrant or minority kids that probably haven't even had a chance to explore that or even think to. And so when you are like bring yourself back to that time when you felt isolated, how did you react to that environment? Were you, because I find that there are people who sort of become a bit of a recluse and just like say, okay, if you guys won't accept me, then I'll just do my own thing. And the others that sort of almost conform and go, okay, well, I guess I have to try to do what you're doing and get along. Like, would you land on any one of those sides, or how did you react to it?
Part of this will be like racial and cultural, and part of this will be temperament and upbringing. But I was definitely a tall poppy, definitely very Hermione esque, very overachiever, wanting to win at everything sports, school, best grades, want to be the lead of the play, which probably didn't like help with the bullying that I received because I refused to, I was taking up as much spotlight as I possibly could, which I
Right.
think is wonderful in a child, and should be protected. And I think as I grew up, that some of that got worn down, and I'm now reclaiming it, the audacity to take up as much space and be as loud and as seen as I truly want to be, you know? But yeah, I think if that's a child's temperament and they receive some flack for it, which many kids for many reasons do, then they start to shrink, right? To feel safer. So by the time I got to high school, I was like scared of the cafeteria, and I would break into the auditorium to like dance on the stage alone instead of being with the other kids, So that's kind of where I, got to by my high school years.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that because it's not only vulnerable, but I think our audience needs to hear that. It's interesting how so many, even of our own guests on the podcast, have sort of taken that approach. Some are choosing either gang violence or dangerous things or dance and art, which is a great way obviously to express yourself. But there's the other option, which openly I can relate to that as well, where I don't want to go into the common area where all of the people are who are probably going to judge me because I'm different. So I'm going to go hang out either with these people or by myself and just practice and do things that feel maybe productive and allow us to self-soothe in a sense, I guess. But
Mhm.
was there a time where, that a community was built? Like, were there more people that you started to connect with and you had an opportunity to?
I definitely built that for myself when I, you know, graduated high school and went out into the world. It didn't really seem to be a problem as soon as I was in Toronto, as soon as I was traveling in artist circles. And Toronto, for the most part, has been like a very welcoming, diverse place, which I'm grateful
Right.
for. I'm grateful to be Canadian for that as well.
Question. Would you feel that you're even thankful for, again, the isolation that you had in that small town? Man, they always say it's like some of the best things come from bad places in a sense. So yeah, to say, hey, everything went so well after I, just had years of racism or whatever. But are you grateful for that time?
I think so. I am. It shapes you, right? And I've started connecting with other Laotian artists a lot over the last couple of years and even just going to community events. And I noticed how many people in the diaspora were entrepreneurial or creative, were building something for themselves. And I realized that I think it's a natural result of being a part of a diaspora in that you don't belong exclusively to the system that is. So what's left for you is to build something new, which is such a gift in a way. You can view it as a detriment, but it's also, we are, from another culture in a new environment, and we get to enrich that place with everything that we have to offer because it really is our only way to build, right? Nothing is, a lot of us are, our parents, our refugees were building, from the ground up, from grateful from what they did for us, right? But then our generation gets to start businesses, gets to have an artistic career, gets to have a voice. And I think that's really beautiful.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So for the next generation, how do you maybe manage that? Like, if we want the next generation, and I'm thinking about children and I'm thinking about the next children after that. So, would you suggest, and it's not necessarily where, I think I would land, but do you think that they should go through maybe not the same isolation and just sheer racism, but do you think that they should deal with some of those hardships in order for them to sort of evolve and move to the next level? Or do you feel like our world has changed enough that, as they're growing up, they're in an environment where they can still thrive with how things are currently without the same hardships that clearly we faced?
I mean, I feel like I don't have kids yet, but I feel like when I have kids, you know, I'm so lucky that you just do your best to lift your kid up from whatever circumstances you can give them. And the hardships just, they're going to come even if, and I feel like every parent is like, back in my day, I had it so much harder.
We
Right.
walked 600 miles to school every day or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. But, I think I'm really proud. I've come to be really proud of where I am based on where I came from as well. And, still going for more and more. But I think that future generations will get to build on that and good for them. Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You mentioned in our offline conversation that you've just recently had a chance to reconnect with, your culture and heritage. What sparked that, and how does it feel?
It feels amazing. This is going to get pretty personal, but I spent most of my 20s very on my own, went through a lot of trauma and difficult things with my family around the end of my teens and ended up kind of just navigating the world as a bit of a stray cat or street dog for my 20s, making my career happen, going to therapy, getting good and really trying to build on my own. And then in the last couple of years, some healing, got to a place where I was ready and I reconnected with my father, who now lives out here, well, here in Laos, a couple hours outside of Vientiane. He's remarried. I have a beautiful little half brother. But that reconnection, apart from just healing my own personal relationship with my father, it also affected my relationship to my culture, which had become very dormant in just, a millennial in Toronto going to cocktail bars and being, my culture is Ossington Street, right? You like lose
I
your
love
ground in the middle of it. But yeah, it sort of, it's been a huge shift over the last really only 2 years. And that Laos growing up was almost this like mythological war torn place that my family had immigrated from, not a present day place that I had people who I know and love that I FaceTime from, which
Hmm.
it it totally transformed my relationship to it. So I came back last year on Christmas Eve at 11 p.m. And my dad picked me up at the airport, and we just started to rebuild slowly. And, I had made the decision that I needed to connect with my culture, regardless of how rebuilding that relationship went, which it went so much better and so much easier than I ever could have imagined. He'd also done work. And I think, for listeners, who are dealing with complicated relationships with their family, the sort of tropes we have around refugee or immigrant parents, to get to a place in my where my father genuinely loves me unconditionally for who I am and just wants to know who that person is. And whenever I share my accomplishments, all he wants to know is if I'm happy. He's not mad that I'm not a doctor. He really just wants to know if I'm happy. I feel really blessed to be there in my life with my family. But
Man, that's
through all
beautiful.
of that, talking so much, but through all of that,
No, please share. This is beautiful. Yeah.
this is now my second trip back, and I'm starting to shape my life to ideally spend my winters here, maybe more. But I've realized that I'm just in the process of really falling in love with the culture. And that it is like a falling in love, which means that it's never ever going to feel like enough. Like when you love a person, you can never have enough time with them. Like I'm never gonna, there's so many layers to how I want to honor and be in love with the culture. I still need to learn how to make damakum. I want to, deepen my relationship to Buddhism. I'm here doing Muay Thai camp in Thailand. That's something I wanted to do, but I also want to go to the north. So it's gonna be a lifelong love affair, which I think it's really wonderful to be in love with where you're from.
Yeah, geez, congratulations. I think, well, I think it's such a journey for many people to get there because, again, we're in a place where it's a melting pot of all these different cultures. And it's very easy for us to just put our own on the back burner. It's better, to try this food and eat this and learn from this person and not really take the time to stop and go, yeah, what is like there was a long time where I didn't even know what was the type of Buddhism that Lao people generally, practiced or believed in, and I went like, why don't I know these things? I say that I'm Lao, I speak Lao for the most part, but there's just this weird disconnection. So it's great that you're able to just embark on this journey because I think it's a fulfilling one for sure. I can just see it in your whole energy where I think you're just in it right now and you're really feeling it. So I think that's awesome. Are there moments that when you're in Laos, trying to understand how to say this the best, but like, is there a place where you feel sort of like in the middle of everything? I'm not a small Lao person, so when I go back there, people don't look at me like I'm Lao. They're like, you speak Lao with an accent, you're a massive person, like what the hell? So I don't know that I've ever felt like I fit into one particular one. Do you ever feel that when you're back there as well? It's just some things that come up from time to time.
I mean, I'm mixed. So that alone, I don't quite fit. I'm also very tall. Yeah. I don't think there's like, what's interesting is that Bangkok actually was the place where I felt the most belonging that I've ever felt, in that it's a cosmopolitan city. And I've never seen so many Asians in my life. It's just normal,
Yeah.
Again, because it's cosmopolitan and in Asia and, Thai Lao, and there's a lot of Lao people and a lot of, Thai people who speak Lao, they're Isan. It's like, oh, I kind of just make sense here, like my fashion
Mhm.
sense doesn't look crazy because there's a lot of individualism, right? Yeah. And I mean,
So
in the
you,
village now when I visit. It's like they're getting used to me, but I don't seem like I'm from there. I go for my like runs in the morning and I'm not like covering my skin from the sun. And they're like, what weirdness is this Western girl up to? But you know what? The little girls at the school like come out to the gate and say somebody to me in the morning. And I'm like, you know what? It's probably good for them to see like a girl doing sports and like being different, you know? So,
100%. 100%.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, breaking barriers and boundaries everywhere. Like that's an opportunity for them to see like there is a different way or a different, thought of process of doing things. So I think that's always nice. So when did acting come into play? Like when did you sort of go, oh, okay, this is what I like. This is what I'm going to do for 20 years, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a dancer. I started that very young, like 3 or 4 years old, and took it very seriously because that was my temperament. And my parents were supportive of that. And they drove me to dance conventions in Toronto from our small town when like master choreographers would fly in from the States and whatnot. And part of that process would involve auditioning, or and sometimes there'd be agents. So I got my first talent agent that way. I got proposed by an agent and started auditioning for film and television as like a little teeny bopper doing that. And then kind of over time just realized that I loved acting more than dance in terms of like what I wanted to create long term with my life. So I'll always be a dancer, but it kind of the love sort of took me in that direction.
Was there something maybe that, not that turned you off from dancing, but just that you loved so much more about acting?
I remember when it in the beginning, and I'm now like reconnecting more to dance. This is like a purely artistic thing, like to deepen my artistry across mediums, like to go back to the original source of love. And there's a lot for me to learn in that. Um, I remember in the beginning when I was just starting to fall in love with acting, and it it was like a faster high. I don't really know how to. So
Yeah,
with
yeah.
dance, you would train and train and train and train. You would learn the choreography, and then you would drill that choreography until it was like muscle memory, and then you would dance through it. And it was a lot easier to just like get some words off memorized and have that full expression. So I don't know how I feel about that being the reason why, but I was sort of reaching that transcendent place as an artist with the faster kind of dexterity that was really attractive when I was 17, I guess.
So
Now
were
it
you,
seems silly because I've like developed my artistry for so long that acting is just like dancing in terms of the amount of like repetition and training and depth and everything required. But
yeah, what's something that people don't like what's something that people wouldn't think about when it comes to acting? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are like, I could do that, or like, but clearly it's difficult and probably a lot more challenging than other people would think. But yeah, what's something
yeah,
that they wouldn't think has to do with acting but does?
well that entirely, right? I think it's a tricky one because the whole process is sleight of hand, right? So I do a lot of work for you to think that nothing is it's just happening first time in the moment it's real life. You can just stand there and talk and that's what's happening, right? But the actors do a lot of training and preparation and work to be able to make it look like there's nothing happening,
Right,
right?
right. Years of
Yeah.
practice going into one scene that makes you think, oh, that just takes 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
What was were you getting a lot of roles in the early stage if you were 17 and you started kind of getting into acting, or was there a lot of auditions? What was it like? Was there a lot of rejection? I'm sure you've been through it all.
I mean, I think all actors go through an insane amount of rejection. I don't even really like to call it that because it's just so inherent to the process. When I was, I mean, I feel like I've always been fortunate, and I don't know exactly why this is, but doors have always been fairly open for me in that I've often received good auditions. Like I've always been able to have that. Have I gone through the door as often as I'd like? No. I mean, I think we all want to be further along than we already are. That being said, the doors have been there. What was your question specifically?
It was just based on like what I'd really like to understand is for anybody who's listening that would like to get into acting at some point in time, what should they be prepared for? And I understand at 17 it's different than what it would be at someone if someone was 30, but like what did you feel and go through in that early stage?
I think everyone's journey to it is different. Mine was sort of like it's not every actor's experience that they sort of like meet an agent and then that's how they get started. So that was a gift. But generally what people do is they, you know, set out on the journey. They decide that it's what they want to do. You find some good classes, you get training, and then you start looking for an agent. And then you get an agent, and then you audition endlessly. And then you learn how to run the marathon, which I think most people takes, it's quite humbling to realize what the process is really going to be. And it doesn't matter how good you are, how good looking you are, or any of it. It's going to be it's going to be a long marathon, which I don't think nothing but experience prepares you for that. There's nothing I could say to I remember being like 17 and thinking I was going to like get on Gossip Girl within the first year and then I was going to do really good movies. Right? Like I just was like, that's how it's gonna go. But you can't really give that to a young person. And I almost think that you shouldn't. Like they need that delusion because you have to earn the endurance, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
anybody
no,
who
that's
it
great advice.
scares, if that scares them, they should probably be somewhere else.
So were there times where well, it sounds like a big help and a huge key to help you sort of get through was getting an agent very early on. So is there a shout out to them or how does that go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was just my particular luck of how it went. There were definitely like key people early on who, for better or worse, made me think that I could do this for a living. One of them was Amy Wright. She's a casting director and choreographer in Toronto. I think she's done that for a lot of people, but she has a way of making you think that the thing you love that you're talented at is a real thing that you could devote your life to and make money at so anybody who's done that for me I have a lot of deep love and I owe them that. Encouragement means the most to a young person.
Yeah, it's just to not limit what they think is possible. And I've caught myself far too many times being the old guy looking over at a kid and going, you can do anything in life. And I catch myself and I'm like, I've become that guy now. But very happy and proud to be because I think it's needed. And I think there's just too many people telling them what they can't achieve or shouldn't try to achieve. Have you ever felt that some of the roles or some of the people tried to sort of lead you into a bit of a box, like, no, you can only play this type of role, or this is the type of role that's good for you? Have you felt that?
I haven't felt too boxed specifically. I will note that I think it was sort of floating up in my consciousness earlier in our conversation, but in the early 20 teens, like I think I mentioned that it's been like 20 years, but that's long enough to watch the industry evolve right? So, you get into something, but then you realize that an industry is something that is changing. And it's changing now. But I remember auditioning for Netflix and thinking, what's a web series? Like nobody even watches those because it was like 2011. It was like less good than prestige television.
Right.
Right now, it's like all anybody wants. But in the early 20 teens, casting breakdowns would use this verbiage of ethnically ambiguous, which as I was writing about my internalized racism, I realized that auditioning to be chosen to be ethnically ambiguous probably and getting rejected from it like hundreds of times probably did something, it probably made some impression because I was unpacking what ethnically ambiguous is, and it was very trendy in the 2010s. But it's to be not white, right? To be non-white, which in my case as a beautiful young woman usually meant to be viewed as sexualized in a different light than um the like this is getting very real about race and the world we live in. But if there's a status hierarchy, if you're a non-white woman, you are less than, and therefore from the worldview of like from a white first worldview, you're automatically less valuable, therefore less a wife and more a mistress or more, a prostitute. Auditioned for plenty of strippers and prostitutes in my in the 20 teens. But the ambiguity means that I don't want this character to be a white person. I want them to be exotic, but I want to not deal with any specificity of what that is. All right. I don't want to have to contend with their culture or their lineage or what strengths they have or what specifically belongs to that. I just want it to be
Right.
ambiguous,
Just in generalized.
general beige, you know, hot and beige, which really does a disservice to, you know, trying to get chosen for that. You're washing away, right? You end up subconsciously washing away what is specific and beautiful.
Yeah, that was actually a thought and a question that I had is that did you ever feel that you had to sort of tone that down? And clearly that's the case, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, even still, like I rarely see roles that are Thai or Lao or mixed specific. You just sort of hope that the character either isn't about that or they will adapt the story. I think my first job that I booked, they changed the character's name to make her Lao, which I was like, thank you.
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
What role was that?
it was on a show called Baxter, and I was playing a character named Anya. And if the show had continued, I would be the new girl in the high school show, the lead's like love interest. And she was a dancer, and she was very strict and very serious about her dance studies. No time to date, you know?
Very cool. Wow. That's good to hear. So it sounds like there has been some, progress made. Do you feel it's enough? And I say that, with as much controversy as anybody wants to take it with, but like, do you feel like it's enough for, our world today? Like, I feel like there's still, I think we all know whether it's systematic racism or some sort of racism out there, but, do you feel it's enough at this time in our world?
Well, look, I'm kind of sitting in my perspective on things is to stop viewing the industry as out there, like as somebody else. I'm the industry. You're the industry. Like the industry is the individual artists, right? So any director that I meet, we're the industry. It's not someone else. So, in that, to not sit in the victim position of why isn't there enough for me? Why isn't there more representation for me? Well, I might just have to be the one to write it, to get it produced, to apply to telefilm and get a grant, because who else is going to do that, right? I don't know who else is going to do that for me. So I have to do that, which is totally fine. I am concerned in terms of like, we look at the larger picture. I know that a lot of the like diversity and inclusion mandates are being cut at large studios in the States right now with everything that's going on there. Doesn't make me optimistic. I think that at least ethnically ambiguous was trending in the last like 15 years, but I don't think it's trending now, which I don't think is a step forward. But yeah, to make those opportunities for yourself. And then also in my particular case, there's the notion of being mixed, which beyond just getting representation for minorities, it doesn't seem like entertainment has any idea to do how to storytell about people being of multitudes, which is a lot of the population of the planet and increasingly so I think we're just gonna have to figure out how to do that.
Well, do you see
Yeah.
that as I mean, great answer, by the way. I think that's a very strong, resilient, and forward thinking answer, but also perspective. So that's great. But is that part of why you've sort of said, hey, this is an opportunity for me to reconnect back with my heritage, but also start to connect with other artists as well? Is that kind of part of the goal and the future going forward, is to maybe start to produce things that are a little bit more, focused on certain cultures or certain groups that maybe are not being represented currently?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, there was a shift that happened internally a couple of years ago, that the notion that I'm enough, that I'm not operating from any sense of deficit. And I think that was either like, what do people say? Pot, kettle, which one came, chicken, egg, which one came
Right,
first?
right.
I don't know if the healing my relationship to my family, deepening my relationship to my culture came first, or it came because of it. But they went together for sure. And then also, um, in that enoughness, I stopped obsessing over whether my talent and my ability was good enough. I will always be seeking excellence and growth as an artist, but that it is enough now. And once you cross over the threshold of I'm enough, then you can actually start advocating for yourself. Because if you still think that you're in deficit, you can't fight for yourself yet because you're not sure you should. And then when you're on the other side, then you start looking around and you go, why aren't there more roles for me? I guess I have to make them. Well, there should be stories that feature people like me, right? But until you believe that, you won't have the audacity that's required, right? Which, there's a certain demographic group who we all admire their audacity. Where the hell did they get it from, right? But what do we need to heal, to know that we deserve that audacity as well?
Great answer. Great answer. Well, it's pretty, like, I don't think you're just sharing. Well, sorry, I think you're sharing, but I think you're sharing with us the legitimate steps that you took to arrive, in a sense. And I think that's great, because I think that to me means more, in my opinion, for the audience than it would to hear how, you got this role or that role. Like, this is to me the real journey. This is the thing that I think would help the future generations really understand more. So what are some things, like, I know you train, and there's certain things that have sort of led to this, but like, are there any things, like, just in practice, you seem obviously very mindful, whereas was there things like meditation and obviously training in Muay Thai, like, what things sort of helped you realize that you are enough?
I've done a lot of therapy, lot of therapy. Shout out Jungian analysis. That one was a really good fit for me. But I've been a seeker of like wisdom, knowledge, psychology, philosophy, and absorbed all kinds of sources around that. What makes something click for a person at any given moment? Just that eventually real change happens inside for people. Like, it's hard to know what is going to, tip the scale over, but people do change fundamentally with these kinds of things on the right day with the right amount of love received, you know? And I think
What would
that
you,
art can contribute to that. I do. I think that fundamentally the things that we make, right? We can, and sharing our vulnerability and what we've been through, that can, it's not, nothing is independently responsible, but it's just that one more thing somebody says to you, right?
right? What would you say? Because I just want to go back a little bit. I think even the maybe how therapy itself is looked at today is completely different than what it once was. I think today it's a very healthy thing for somebody who even considers themselves to be very healthy or very great. What would you say to somebody who doesn't feel that therapy is maybe not necessary, of course, because if it isn't for them, it's not for them, but it is not helpful? What would you say to those people?
That the unexamined life repeats itself. So the it's not required, but if you're unfulfilled, unhappy, noticing things that uh, happen in your life in patterns, I think that there is nothing more empowering in this lifetime than to explore why you are the way you are, to give yourself the option to choose something else.
And was there something that triggered that, like to go? Or was it just exactly what you said, that you found yourself in patterns? And if there's something you don't want to discuss in this, please let me know.
No,
I'm super fascinated by this. I'm a student of psychology. I love as people, sort of go through this journey. Was there something that triggered that for you?
well, I think that I'm definitely someone who's always been very pro psychology and therapy. I got a psych degree from U of T, and to having examined myself, it was entirely a result of growing up in the home that I grew up in, wanting to have the option to choose differently. So my attraction to it was very strong and very early, and in my case, very necessary, and is also entirely foundational for the kind of artist that I am. Like acting is very psychological, right? So it's so intrinsic to me in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer. Like, what is it that drives you today? Because I feel like there's always like there's a Kaizen esque to you, that you just want to be better, do better, want more. But what is the thing that drives you? Because I have a personal theory that people generally start something, or the reason why someone starts something is generally changes or is different than why they continue to go towards whatever goal. What started this journey for you, obviously, and what makes you continue on? Because clearly it requires a lot of work.
Yeah, I think I definitely echo that the reasons people start things are not the reasons they continue, right? The relationship with it changes. I think in my case I did start just for love, which is good. That's probably the only reason I'm still here. Um is that, if it's what you're really meant to do, then you know that. I also, like, I spent some time, I tried to quit once, which was very valuable. And I recommend it to anybody who's thinking about it, because if you quit, you'll find out if you can quit or not.
Good answer as well. Jeez.
Because if you quit and everything else is still measured against how much you loved that thing, well, then you know that there's no quitting. So you might as well get to committing. Sounded so old. No, but like, right? If you can quit it and forget about it, then maybe you should. Not out of
Right.
a protection, but out of a, like, you should genuinely follow what makes you happiest in your life. So I think there's value in quitting. I I don't know, since being back here and, my father's wonderful unconditional love and genuine concern for my happiness, it's kind of made me, and it might be the beach, it might be all the fresh fruit, but we really aren't, like, we're just animals, and we're meant to, like, eat fruit and make more of ourselves. And the rest of it we've made up, which means that you should subscribe or unsubscribe at will. And I think spending time between the two cultures has also really revealed that to me, because I see more clearly what is functional and dysfunctional in each. And so every time I come back here, my brain takes a couple weeks to start like unclenching the Western capitalism's hold on my like need to do more, achieve more, get more, right? And then I get here and I'm like, what am I so obsessed with? Like, just be present. Your life is passing and it will end, to just but then when I take that enoughness that I feel in Laos, especially in the village, you know, and I go back to my dreams and my ambition and my pursuits, and I think you said Kaizen, I know that it, I'm doing it for fun, really, for joy, not because there's something else that I need to get for my life to have. I don't have to win at it to be valuable, worthy, enough, fulfilled. But it's interesting and fun to pursue and explore and attempt excellence over, many, many years. Because, like, what else are you going to do?
Everything else is boring. Do you not feel any weight, I guess? Like, you asked me how essentially I found you, and it was through a very short list of, people who are renowned or doing things who are Lao or Thai or of Southeast Asian descent in Canada. Do you feel any weight that you're representing us as a whole?
I think I'm just starting to be conscious of that, to be honest. I think I've just been trying to find opportunities and make things. And I've just been in the process of getting the engine going, it feels like, for 20 years. I don't necessarily think I was conscious of the people behind me who I am representing. I think representation also is the complicated thing when you feel that your origins are mixed too, because I'm aware that my experience is also unique, right? And that my stepmother's experience as a Laotian woman is completely a different life experience than my life experience. Also, my cousins who are fully Lao have a different experience than me in Canada, even, right? So my voice is just like one among many. But I do hope to make things with pride and to show who we are in a greater world stage. Because I think for the most part, I don't know about other places in the world, but it feels like in Canada and in North America, people just don't even really know who we are and what we have to offer. There's a lot of just ignorance.
Yeah, and I think for those who do know, just end up staying there. Like if they end up in Laos or Thailand, they just like, we're just going to stay here and not go back, or always want to go back to experience the culture and learn more about it. But um, yeah, I think that there is a journey for all of us to sort of go through that. And if it takes 20 years for you to realize, hey, this is whether I'm accepting the responsibility or not, it may be on my shoulders. But I think what you're doing well is that you are starting by just learning. Like, I'm just going to immerse myself in the culture, learn it, understand it very well, because as mentioned earlier, there's plenty of my even family and friends that we grew up with that are full Lao that know really nothing of our cultures, have never been back home. And again, that's not the only thing. We would only know what our parents have taught us, and it's always going to be a bit diluted or a little bit different than what we can really take on. But let's talk about Muay Thai and where did you, again, I know it's your insatiable, like, to just do crazy things, but what does that do for you? What have you learned and how has it affected your life?
First of all, it was something I always wanted to do. I've also always wanted to do action movies. I think that some of my original love for cinema was like growing up watching action movies with my dad, So that's still very much alive in the dream for me. And, you know, I danced and then I started to train in Muay Thai. I think as a woman as well, it gives you a sense of strength. I really love like the martial arts environment for like the respect that's given. It's a truly equal place that a person is measured on their discipline and their commitment and their internal strength and their fortitude. And I like to be in a co-ed environment where that's the case, and it's fun to sweep men on the ground who are a lot bigger than me using technique. There's like that gives you something, I feel, and I think it affects how you carry yourself in life as well. And having that audacity, speaking up. This is like a very actory, but I think now it's pretty settled, but my voice has changed over the last couple of years into a more authentic expression of who I really am. But women, we tend to like talk higher and like kind of apologetically, right? And like kind of cute. This kind of register is like very, like, we talk like this a lot, and it's a lot of laughing and a lot of smiling. And as an actor, that will, like, if you can't take that off, it will keep certain roles away from you, right? If it's not something you're conscious of. But I remember when my voice was more sitting in that register on a daily basis, and I started training martial arts. And, somewhere in the middle of the 30th push up, your voice drops all the way down. You're going to make sure you're heard. So I think that, yeah, it connects you to your power in a really beautiful way.
Yeah. And is there any I guess female actresses that you sort of aspire to be like in that action realm? Because there's a lot of great ones.
There's a lot of great, I mean, Michelle Yeoh's mother, God, there's so many. It's less action. It's more her like psychological predator. But Rosamund Pike, I would love to do a lot of her roles. But as a half Asian woman, God, there's so many actresses I admire. I love Zoe Saldana's work as well. I think she's gotten to do. Angelina Jolie has always been like, incredible.
And do you feel, aside from the wanting an action, like to get into the action roles, do you think that the mentality and the discipline behind Muay Thai has helped you maybe just become a better actress as well?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's a through line for me in the kind of artist that I am, that's like, ballet, Muay Thai, and I bring the same approach to my acting. I do believe that there's like an athleticism, an artistic athleticism to it that is required repetition, and, you know, the same way an athlete achieves excellence. It's the same thing.
Yeah, that's great. What's next? I know you said that you had a big role coming up, but I'll let you share with everybody.
I have a Lifetime movie coming out in, I believe it is June 5th, and it's my first leading role, which is a fantastic opportunity. It's the first time I was, trusted with almost all of 120 pages of storytelling.
My goodness.
So I'm really excited to see how that turns out and have a little watch party.
Yeah, congratulations. That's
Thank you.
incredible. I think I said it offline, but as I was sort of going through those, just some of your clips and stuff, I said, geez, it has to come soon that you'll have an opportunity to really, show them what you're made of. What was that process like? Like, how do you sort of absorb almost all of that pressure? And because you're going from a bunch of different roles to now, like you said, 120 pages of you, essentially. How did you take
Yeah.
that on?
It's funny, you there's a lot of different kinds of training. I mean, this would be comparable to Muay Thai, but I haven't had an actual fight. So this is hypothetical. But you can do all the training that you want. There are certain things that nothing prepares you for when the bell gets hit and you're in the ring and there's another person, right? All the training that I've done as an actor, and no one really tells you how to manage 120 pages. And we shot in 14 days. So you're shooting 8 to 14 hours a day, 6 days, 5, 6 days in a row. and then a day or two off, and then, which is really, the sort of preparation to run a marathon that I hadn't navigated before. And because like filmmaking is all out of order, one of the things that was like very challenging for me doing this for the first time is when you are, this is like very actor lore, but when you are like a supporting character, your character is in certain scenes and then not. Right. So the camera, the main narrative is following the lead, and you sort of pop in. And when you're not on camera and not on the script, you use your imagination to fill in the blanks of what your real person is up to. Right. Because they have a whole life. It's just the camera's not on them. So you get to make it up and you get to put the pieces together. But when you're the lead, the camera's on you the whole time. So there's less that you're filling in and more that you must fulfill, if that makes any sense. And as you shoot out of order, you might shoot exiting the same house 4 times in a row because that's efficient for production. But you have to know exactly what time it is that you're leaving your character's house. Is my husband alive or dead? Do I know this information or not this information? Was I crying on the other side of that door? Okay, if I was crying on the other side of that door, I have to be crying now because I'm coming out of the door. So cry. It's a lot of putting the puzzle together. It's very challenging. And then just for hours on end. And then you're done and you hope it all works together.
And you leave it to the editors to
Yeah, and you
make
hope they
magic in
really
a
do
sense.
you justice. Yeah.
What what is that like, mentally? Like that must just drain you after. Like I feel like that's a very exhausting process. So, and if it is, how do you recover? Like how do you spend your time getting yourself prepared to come back in there and put on your best cry face or your best whatever the next scene requires?
I think that's learned through experience. I think every actor just finds their way through what they need to go all of the rounds in the ring, right? What has to happen in between and how to protect their own process. I've definitely had like moments in my career where I was less experienced, where I didn't know what I needed. And then the result was what it was. And I learned, I can't be chatting in between scenes because I won't be able to go there. I need this. Somebody else doesn't need that, but I know what I need. So it just becomes a energy management, attention management. And it really is when you're shooting like that, it's 24 hours, So like the minute I'm finished on set and I'm in the van, I'm going back to the hotel. I gotta be ready for tomorrow and what we're shooting. So I need to know exactly what those lines are and what those scenes are. And you just sort of like fall asleep getting ready, and you wake up and you get yourself there, and you do a little prep in the morning, and it's just a full-time job when you're shooting, which
My
it's
goodness.
amazing. It's the best, but you're locked in. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to be. And you said that was 14 days straight, or you had 1 or 2 days like to break up some of that?
Yeah, we'd have like a weekend on like a Tuesday or something that would be a day. um yeah, where you sleep because you also shoot around the clock, right? So your
Right.
your time is getting, yeah, it could be any time of day that you're shooting. Yeah.
Yeah, my goodness. Um, and now, sorry, what's the name of the movie? Or sorry, are you allowed to disclose that? Like, can we promote that
Yeah.
now? Okay.
Yeah, it's called Her Husband's Double Life.
Oh my goodness. That sounds
Mhm.
interesting. And you said it was a thriller, right?
Yeah.
And you said Lifetime. Where are people able to watch that? Is that a channel or is that like, can you watch it on Netflix or something? I don't know.
Yeah, Lifetime is a TV network in the States. We also have
Okay.
Lifetime Canada, but I believe it'll be released at a different time in Canada than the States.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we have taken enough of your time today. I thank you so much for sharing your insights. You gave us a ton, I think, of great things. You've shared us many things into your life and your journey, and I think it would be invaluable to those who are maybe not even on a similar path, but just on their path, which I think is really important. What would be your, let's say, message to the world? One last thing that you would share with everybody.
Love is all there is. That's all it comes down to.
I love that. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, Tanisha. How do people find you if they want to connect?
I'm on Instagram. My handle is at Tanisha Thamma, Thamma. If you want to say hi on there, you can say hi on there. If you want to Google me and watch my movies, you're more than welcome to.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you guys all for listening. Please like, share, subscribe. It's clear we put a lot of great people to try to provide a great platform for all of these great people who are doing great things. So be sure to support them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.